In this lesson, we'll look at some of the tools that we can use to modify a subdivision surface. So let's go ahead and bring in just a quick subdivision primitive. You can see there's no options here for these. So if I bring in a cylinder, you can see we're pretty much stuck with what we get here. If I go ahead and go to a component mode, you can see the sort of cage that it is using here to create this subdivision surface. Now I told you that there's a close relationship between polygons and subdivision surfaces, so you can think of this pink cage as sort of the polygon that's being used to create this subdivision surface. So we can actually use this fact to get a little bit more flexibility into the creation of our subdivision surfaces. So let's say that we want a cylinder with a little bit more resolution in here. We don't really have that option over here. So what we can do is actually convert a polygon surface into a subdivision surface very easily. So we would go ahead and just create the polygon primitive. In this case, it would be a cylinder. Okay, and we would choose the number of subdivisions, maybe change the height. So we'll just get maybe something like that. Let's add a couple of subdivisions on the caps. So let's say we want to have this as our base instead of the other cylinder. So all we'd have to do is go to Modify, Convert, and there are a number of options here for converting different types of geometry to other types. In this case, we want to convert a subdivision, or rather a polygon surface, to a subdivision surface. So we'll go ahead and click on this, and you can see here now, if we hit 3 to smooth the display, that we get a smooth subdivision surface based on that particular mesh. Okay. If we go ahead and go to our edges, you can see that that is the polygon basically that we started with. Okay. And so what we want to do now is start to modify this. So I want to bring out some spokes, let's say. And so let's go ahead and choose the face, and then we'll skip 3 faces. So let's choose maybe every 4th face. Okay. So that'll give us basically 5 face selections here. Let's go ahead and go to extrude, and you can see here that we're getting an error. It's telling us that this poly extrude only works on polygonal faces. What's the problem? Well, this is a subdivision surface, and we're working with these subdivision components here. And so what we need to do is change our mode. So we'll go to Surfaces, Menu Set. Okay, let's go to Subdivision Surfaces, and let's change from Standard Mode to Polygon Proxy Mode. Go to Object Mode and Polygon Proxy Mode. So now you can see that we actually have this cage that we can select around here, and we can actually use our polygon tools to modify our subdivision surface. So let's try that again. So we'll select this, and we'll go to Component, choose Faces, and then we'll select those faces once again. You can see it looks a little bit different. We don't get the pink shell there. Now let's try to extrude. So going back to polygons now, because we're using our polygon tools, we'll go to extrude, and then we can start to pull out this geometry, and you can see the smooth version underneath. Okay, we can also kind of scale that out a little bit if we want to. Okay, if we want to move these all as one rather than just based on their own local space here, can click on the little blue circle, and then we'll just move this down a bit. Okay. We can also come in here if we want to select kind of all of these faces in the middle. Let's actually just select these. We'll deselect anything down here. We're still in polygon proxy mode here. Okay, so we can kind of bring this up, and let's do some extruding. So we'll extrude this, and we'll kind of scale it in here. Okay, repeat that process. Maybe push it down a little bit. Repeat that, kind of tighten it up a little. Okay, then we can start to shape our model here. Now looking at this, you can see that it's using those faces on the end as part of the smoothing, and so we get this looping sort of look here. If we want that to come right out to the end, all we have to do is just delete those particular faces, and they won't be used at all in calculating that subdivision surface. Okay, now you can see how everything is very, we go back into our standard mode. You can see how everything is pretty smooth, but with a subdivision surface we don't have to add extra resolution to tighten up the edges as we would with a smoothed polygon. We can actually just crease those. So let's take a look at that. Let's say we want this edge right around here to be nice and sharp, so we'll take those edges that we want to be sharpened, select those edges, okay, and we'll go to subdivision surfaces, and then we have some creasing options. A full crease will be completely sharp, while a partial crease will partially crease that. So you can see it's tightened that up a little bit. We can partially crease it once again, and you can see how that is much sharper than what we have over here. All right. And we can also, if we want to create some holes in here, we can start to refine areas. So if we go to our faces, you can see that we have some particular faces here. So let's choose maybe these faces right in the center of these open areas, kind of right in here. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and say right click, and I want to refine selected. So what that's going to do is take advantage of this subdivision hierarchy. Now you can see here, over here we're at level 1. We can do this again, and you can start to see how we're working with finer and finer amounts of detail. Here we're now at level 2. So this is what the subdivision hierarchy will give you. Okay, now we can come in here, and let's say we want to select those ones in the middle to modify. Okay, we'll go ahead and deselect everything else. With the polygon, you can't really do that. You've got to kind of go in and subdivide that, actually add polygons to this. And here we're just kind of accessing a finer level of the model. Okay, so if we've got those selected now, we can go ahead and kind of push that down and create those sort of indentions. Okay, and then we can move back up the levels. So we can display cursor until we're up here at the base. Now you can see how that detail is still in there, but now if we go to our components, you know, we don't have all of those components because we're here at the base level. If we want to display finer, then we can go ahead and start to access those points that we created there. Okay, so that subdivision hierarchy is something that you're going to just have to experiment with a little bit, and we definitely have training on that. So we'll go ahead and display all the way back up to the top, and again you can go ahead and use creasing to sharpen up any of those edges. So you probably want to go around and sharpen up some of those edges there. Okay, so that's a quick look at some of the tools that we can use with subdivision surfaces, and also looking at the close relationship the subdivision surface has with a polygon object. So the next lesson, I think what we want to do is just start to look at how we can put some of these things together. We've been looking at how to build very simple shapes here, how to kind of modify our primitive shapes and create new shapes, but how do we really start to put those things together to create an entire model which is made up of, you know, many pieces. And so we'll look at some of the ways that we can do that as we finish up in the next lesson.